sentence.
Everybody, welcome to the tech capital of the world. Here beside the world famous crumble cookie, Kevin. And I'm still eating these things. I need to stop.
That's bad. I'm glad I don't go into the office because that would be a problem for me.
They're literally beside the front door. Like, you know, it's like
You have to walk past them to get
you
in.
do.
Yeah,
crazy.
that's bad. And they're open late too. I noticed that.
And early.
Oh, they
8
are.
o'clock in the morning.
Who's
People in here getting cookies at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know.
Hey, when you got to get your cookie fix, you got to get your cookie fix, I guess.
I'm not saying it's me at 8 o'clock. It could be, but I'm not saying it is me. So, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So you know it's the bigger problem when you have like the menu like memorized. You're like, you know, this week they're having that special chocolate cookie. Like I shouldn't know that.
Yeah. It's pretty bad if they come by and tell you what it are. Hey, Bobby, got some cookies for you.
Look at that one you really like. You know, that one you had like 8 times. Yeah, that one you keep coming back for. We've got that one going again.
The one
Just
that
for
was
you.
my favorite that I shouldn't buy, but I just thought about it, was it had a gold coin on it. It's edible gold coin right on top of the cookie. I know it's stupid, but like I thought it was funny. The gold coin cookie.
That's interesting. Did they theme that or something then? Was that like a thing?
Just something they do every now and then, you know.
Okay.
Something someone dreamed up, you know.
Special award-winning gold edition.
I'm just waiting for the Coder Foundry orange cookie to come out. I mean, like that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
It just needs to happen, Crumble. Make it happen.
Yeah, we'll see.
So.
Hey, by the way, Shelly, the GitHub shirt, you can buy that on the link down. It's links down in the description
shop.
if you want one. We do sell that one. It's a print on demand one, so yep. The person who did that one was definitely committed.
Yeah.
Mikey wants to know if they give you a Coder Foundry discount.
Yeah, I get a discount on t-shirts.
No. At the cookie place.
No, I don't get a discount. You know, I'm waiting for there's 2 sponsorships I think Coder Foundry should have.
Okay.
Tacos and cookies.
Tacos are tough because what do you get? This Taco Bell, right? And it's like, I don't know, do you want a Taco Bell sponsorship? Probably not. It's not
Yeah, the little taco shack up the street here. You know what I'm talking about. You know?
Yeah.
Can't pronounce it, but it's so good. You should sponsor us.
You don't have to, just eat it. Yeah.
Tacos for life. So.
Yeah. Says Coder Foundry taco sauce and cookies. The taco sauces, yeah, we have thought about that. You can get branded taco sauces. You can have them make them for you. We did an energy drink once. You guys remember that? We did the energy drink. We had FizzBuzz Energy, which we have. What do you have? You have it's not a patent on it. It's what is it? It's a trademark on it.
It's a trademark and a copyright. Yeah. FizzBuzz Energy drinks. Yeah. Maybe we'll bring it back one day.
Maybe. We have some of the cans. Like we just kept the cans as collectors. I don't know if I have one here. I don't think I have one here actually. I should have. I have one when I had an office, but I don't.
We've got 4 unsealed cans. I don't think anyone should drink them at this point.
No. I tried it once. I was just like, I just don't like energy drinks. To me, it's like I just don't like energy drinks. But yeah. So hey, we thought today we had a comment on a YouTube video, and we're like, we could go back and forth with this person, but it's like, let's just make a video on it.
So here's what we say. We actually like comments from you guys, whether they're in the positive or the negative. We like when you comment with us, and we do we engage with you there. So, but we don't want this. We're not putting the person's name in there because we're not trying to out you.
No.
But this comment I think can be destructive to job seekers, and that's why I want to bring it out and just talk about it. So let's just show that comment up that we think that. So if this is you and you're watching, we're not calling you out on purpose.
Well, I've removed the person's name and everything from it. So
don't feel bad about like, hey, if you comment to Coder Foundry, Bobby's going to out us and make fun of us. That's not our goal here.
Oh, we're definitely not going to make fun of this.
Find a job. Yeah.
This person makes some points here that we want to talk about. So let me kind of read the original comment. Yeah. So the original comment the person left was, the IT field is massively oversaturated with all sorts of coders, developers, and engineers. This is why the companies can be so picky when selecting people for those coding positions. They have at their disposal an endless pool of applicants. And then you said, what was your response here? You wrote this. What was your response?
Yeah. Just look at the job postings. I mean, like, there's so many of these job postings out there, and there are way more jobs than there are people to fill them. If it was completely oversaturated, what you would see is next to 0 job postings because you would have 100% employment for all coders, and you would have no new roles being created because they're automatically filled by the hundreds of thousands of people just sitting on the sideline waiting for a job to come out.
Right.
But what you see is the opposite, where there's tons and tons of job openings. We work, and also I can't put this in the quote, but I can talk about it online, is like we work directly with job seekers and two of the largest recruiting companies in the US. So that'd be Tech Systems, Robert Half. We talk to these recruiters. We know that they're looking. I mean, like they're trying to find people that can do these things. So, however, here's the thing about coding I think is a little bit under talked about, is that to win it, you got to have skills. And a lot of people are out there thinking that they can fake their way into this job. And that's the struggle they have. So if you want to say that there's a lot of people faking their way or trying to be a coder without actually putting the work in, and that causes oversaturation,
maybe there is.
Maybe. But what I'm saying is those people aren't qualified for these roles to begin with. So here at Foundry, like YouTube people, content creators tell you the skills are down here. Twitter people say, oh, you need to know a little HTML and CSS. If you listen to us, we're telling you the skills are up here. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit higher barrier to get in than people are telling you. It's not as easy as people say. So you've got to have some skill in order to win these roles. We're going to talk through also what people do to short circuit their job search. And then they turn around and blame this and say, oh, it's oversaturated. No one hires juniors. It's funny how this mentality is phrased different ways over the years. And we've been around long enough to see it.
Yeah.
Whereas no one hires juniors. That's used to be what everyone said. Now they're saying, well, they would, but the seniors are taking my junior role. So the 20-year veteran of C# is suddenly is becoming an email developer because it's oversaturated, and that's simply not true.
Right.
You know? I mean, so
right. The follow-up comment from this person too also made some other points around there being the job market is in a hiring freeze, and there's mass layoffs with 370,000 IT workers laid off between 2022 and 2023 in the US alone. There's been a sharp increase in layoffs since June. Secondly, there are hundreds of thousands of unemployed applicants, leading to an oversaturation in the tech job market. If you're just starting out in a boot camp or college, your chances of landing a secondary, or I don't know what that means, landing a job, I guess. I don't know what that word means, sounding, but landing a job are virtually non-existent. This person is saying there is zero chance of you doing this.
Right. So what I'm going to tell you guys is the truth of this. It is not zero or non-existence. If you don't have skills, then yeah, it's zero to non-existent.
Right.
So what people think is I can make a contact form, put it on a portfolio, call myself a developer, and go interview for a 5-year C# job. You're not going to win that way. All right. But if you put in the work and the effort and build skills out, you'll get a job in this market. So is there 100,000 unskilled candidates trying to get developer jobs? I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is how this works and how you can increase your chances and how you break in. Right. We have seen people hired out of Foundry in the last 7 days. So there's jobs out there.
Right. I just want to talk about some of the points that are in there too then to start off with. Right. Just to kind of, I'm going to go through this kind of quick because this took me 10 minutes to Google some of these things. Just not to kind of like, maybe this is education for the person. I'm not entirely sure whether they know this or not. 370,000 jobs lost. I don't even know if that's the real stat or not. I have no idea. But what I do know is this right here is the truth. This right here shows that every company hired a massive amount of people from 2020 to 2022. They then had layoffs. So take Microsoft right there, for instance. They hired 36%. Their layoffs account for 5% of that 36%. Mm-hmm. It's nothing. It's nothing. They're correcting. There was another quote in. So all of these. This is just talking about the big companies because these have bigger numbers, right? Meta being a bigger example. They hired 54 and then let go of 13. That's the one that people say like Meta let go 27,000 people or whatever it is. Like, yeah, it's a fraction of what they hired. They're still above where they were in 2021. So net is up. When you tell somebody there were 370,000 layoffs, you're not accounting for the fact that there was 400, 500, 600,000 jobs created. Right. Even more than that, based on the percentages. It's kind of crazy. So looking at it, there was another article that I saw that had a great quote in it here. It was this part right here. While the numbers are, so this talks about the layoffs in general, while the numbers are alarming, as of early April 2023, the combined layoffs at these companies represent only 8% of the number of new hires they made during the pandemic.
8%.
8%. So they hired a massive amount, they lay off 8%. It's like this just happens. This happens with companies. It's just people are using it as an excuse, I think.
Right.
And then to the other point that the person makes around a shortage or an oversaturation of developers, it literally took me 2 minutes to find articles that are very, very current. This was May 23. There was another few that I'll show you in a second, talking about there still being a deficit of developers. This is from a company perspective. This is companies saying like, hey, we have a deficit of developers. How do we kind of go around this? I think this one in particular. Yeah, 10 strategies for companies, like how companies are overcoming the fact that they cannot hire enough developers. This is still a problem. We've said this for a long time. This is, again, from May this year. This is not old news. This is not somebody who has an agenda here. This is just fact. This is how it is. There is not a saturation. It is, in fact, the opposite of a saturation. There is a shortage.
And there has been a shortage for the last
forever
20 years. Yeah, as long as this has been
as long as we've been in this.
Always will be. The reason is because people learning to code typically aren't taught to code coming out of school. So they're having to find either learn on their own, take a course or whatever. So like the self-learn or self-taught developer is a real thing. And just the factories don't exist to churn these people out like they think. I think right now what we're also seeing is if you have a college degree, great. You went and you got a 4-year CS degree, fantastic. You combine that with a boot camp, you're doing pretty well. Like, and a lot of students we see come through here and they're like, man, I just need to get proof of work on my thing. I need to like really focus in for a long stretch of time dedicated to learning how to build an application with something, so otherwise I'm just talking about classwork, maybe a half put together capstone project. And I'm not saying that we're superior to every program out there on the face of planet Earth, but if you have more proof of work on your resume, you're going to do better in interviewing. And sometimes a CS degree doesn't come out. Now, what I'll say a CS degree does, it does open doors. I'll be honest with you. It does allow you to get interviewed. Okay.
Some companies gatekeep against it, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Some do, but it's not every single company out there.
Right.
What we've seen in the last 3 years, that a lot of times people are like, okay, boot camps are kind of a thing. And I know that we're a boot camp and you may say we're biased, we're just selling our product. But we couldn't continue to operate if this wasn't a thing. Because like we see people getting jobs out there and we can move the needle during the interview process. The other thing that we've done, I think a really good job that we do that's I think is different from everyone else in the industry is we're trying to figure out why a student wins and why a student loses. Yeah, and then we're back there reworking our curriculum to make sure we can overcome those objections. Here's the secret sauce to my brain and like how I put this together is from the sales, the number one thing any good sales deck should do is overcome the objection. And if you can predict the objections, you win more sales than you lose. And so when we ask a student, tell us what they asked you, tell us why they said no, we then turn around and say, okay, let's fix this in the portfolios. Let's fix this in the projects. Let's make sure they understand these questions so that when they interview, they overcome the objections even before the interviewer asks it. And that makes a powerful interview. It makes a powerful sales presentation. That's how it works. And you can ask anybody here that's sold anything, overcoming objections is the number one goal of any sales deck and any sales presentation and trying to talk anybody into anything. You got to find out why they wouldn't want to buy it. And I don't care if you're selling snake oil out of your jacket or fake Rolex watches or solar panels on your house or trying to talk someone into hiring you as a dev. They're going to have like, why should I hire you? You're out of a boot camp. Or why should I hire you? You've never had a dev job before. You've got to overcome that objection.
Yep.
Like, why?
We'll talk about some of the ways you can do that. That's what we'll talk about that. Just a couple of comments here then, because I think these are good here. Tahirul, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And if I'm not, I apologize for butchering it. But says, if you add value to the company, you will not be let go. That's what I think. That's because you're right.
Yeah. So the other thing that I see in Twitter is, I don't know how to explain. I'm going to be nice. All right. So I'm going to be nice, Kevin. So like, because some of these things drive me crazy is tech Twitter in general tries to set up this adverse relationship between the employee and the employer. Yeah. All employers are bad. They suck. They suck. They suck. Do as minimal as you can because they don't care about you. And what I've always said and what I try to explain to students is add as much value as possible. You become more valuable to the current employer and the 14 future ones that could hire you. If you add value everywhere you go, you're seen more valuable and you add more than you take away. If you become, like I was talking to a student the other day, he said he got 5 tickets for the week in his bug tracker, not in his bug tracking system at work, and he finished 5. He was done by Tuesday morning. He took Wednesday through Friday off, and he thought that was a great thing. I'm like, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you go back to your boss and go, hey, man, I got these done early. They were easier than I thought. Let me do that. So he said, well, that's more work. I'm like, but it makes you more valuable. Like, you know, and he just didn't understand, like, why would I do that? I'm like, well, because you're more valuable. That means you get paid more or you learn more or you're doing it. So like what I always tell students is even if you're working for the hardest boss on the face of planet Earth, okay, the one that could care less, he would fire you the moment he could, all right, but he needs you right then and there, and he's hard to work with. Think about every bug you fix, everything that you work on, everything that you do is adding value to your skill set. And so while you're simultaneously adding value to the company, you're adding value back into you so that you become more valuable in the marketplace as a whole, instead of saying, well, you know what, he lives in a gated community, so he's got enough money. I'm not going to make any more money for him. And I'm just going to sit over here and play Farmville on Facebook. You can do that. But you're actually crippling your own career by doing that. And I think what this guy, he's clued into it. I'm going to add value to the company, and there I'm less likely to get fired. But even if I do get fired and they're awful, I can go somewhere else where I can add value again, and that person will value my skills. So you're increasing your skill set into always. That's what you need to think about this. Managing you and not necessarily what you're doing for others.
There you go. No Fighter says my company requires a BS degree, but my portfolio got me hired. They do also mention they do have a degree that got him an interview, or this person the interview, sorry. But my portfolio actually showed them the skills to back it up.
And I think the second part of there is more accurate, that your degree got you interviewed. And I do think that's possible. So let's say that you're out there, you're listening, Bobby, what are you saying? I got to go to college? Absolutely not. But if you got it, you might as well use it. But if you don't 100%. Have 4 years, $120,000, then we've got to do the portfolio piece. Now, notice if you look into this, he said, but the portfolio got me hired. That's the deal maker right there. The deal maker is the portfolio. And so that's where you just got to convince someone to interview you at this point. That's way easier to convince them to interview you versus convincing them to hire you. That's harder. Yeah. Trying to get an interview is a little bit easier. And so, but people are out there they'll say, I've been trying for 7 months and no success. So we're going to talk about those things of like why we think that's happening.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for being here, Jordan. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Definitely. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the some of the things that are going on here. Let's talk about internal versus external controls.
Right.
What do you think about that?
So yeah, bring this quote back up. Can we show the quote again? Yeah. Let's talk through this. When you look at this quote here, this person is a very externally focused of control person. We call this external locus of control. You feel like the things that are going on are way more impactful on me than what I do. Therefore, since I can't control the economy, the interest rates, or what Facebook does, I'm just going to quit looking.
Right.
Because there's nothing I can do to do it. And you can see it in his last sentence there. If you're just starting out at bootcamp or college, your chances of landing a sounding job are virtually non-existent because of these external factors. And then Null Fighter comes on here and goes, yeah, but my portfolio got me hired. Internally motivated, internal locus of control. He knows what he did supersedes whatever else is going on in society. Now, what we can say for sure is from 2002, there was the tech bubble. That's when everyone thought the internet was going to take over the planet, and it did. But if you weren't around at that time working in the industry like I was, it looks a lot like today, which is if you have an AI pitch deck, you're getting funded. If you had a web idea, you're getting funded in 1999. From 1999 to 2002, They threw billions of dollars at
yeah.
people.
Half
billions,
an idea got made, didn't it?
Yeah. Can think about this, Kevin. If you think about it, think about the search engines that failed during that time. Alta Vista, GeoCities, they got billions of dollars. AOL, like there's just a lot of these search engine companies that didn't happen, and then Google comes along late in the game, and bam, they're the search engine guys. And you can see that, but that tech bubble happened where they spent all of this money to do this. Only one of them won pretty much in the search engine game, and okay, things collapsed, banks went under, these things happened, and everyone was going crazy. What happened in 2002? I started my first company in 2002, right in the middle of that, because we had a layoff where I had a layoff. And then I just said, well, I'm going to start my own company, be a consulting company. And that's what I did right in the middle of the tech bubble, when it burst and everything was blowing up and people are gnashing their teeth and wailing in the streets. And I just said, well, let's see what we can do. We got fired anyway, so let's try it. And the rest is history for me. Now we can fast forward to other bubbles that's happened. We had the 2008 banking crisis, when Obama was president, and we're here. Wachovia was in Winston-Salem, 20 miles from where I have. Yeah. It was a bank on a Friday. Yeah. On a Monday, it wasn't. Yeah. So you remember when that happened, and all of these banks collapsed and everything, and we think, oh, the world is over. We've had a bunch of stock market crashes in between 2000 and where we are today. And now we have this, what I would call a slight hiccup in the interest rates. The interest rates have been zero for a long time. We had a very small little hiccup. We haven't even had an actual recession yet. And then we get emails like this, you don't understand what bad times are. 2002 was bad. That was bad. But we still had opportunities as developers. Here's my bigger question. If you're out there and you believe that it's oversaturated and you believe that you have no chance to get a job, what's your alternative plan? What are you going to do?
All right. Plumber, obviously.
Plumber, electrician. So do you think there's a better opportunity to be a plumber or to be a developer? Is it a better opportunity to be an electrician or a developer? And the electricians in the world say, hey, man, electricity, that's the way it is. The world runs on electricity. Agreed. But if you have to have an alternative plan. And so when we say that there's developer jobs out there, there are. It is the most in-demand job in the country. So if we look at
it, goes it flicks between nurses and developers. Yeah. It's like this all the time.
Yeah. Now the overall level of the economy may come down. Okay, that's great, but these jobs will always be at the top because it's the most in-demand job in the country, regardless of whatever you think the level of the economy is. We're at 4% interest rates. That's still pretty good. We're not in the late 70s where it was 15%. Right. So the economy is still really, really strong. Unemployment is still really, really low. If this was totally oversaturated, then the unemployment rate would be a lot higher. We would see 10% unemployment or 12% unemployment. Right. We also went through a pandemic, man. We went through 2020 when everybody just left and went home for 2 years. And even during that, coders were still getting jobs.
Well, they were getting more jobs. It boomed. Yeah. That was the thing. Exactly. It really boomed because there was much more need for technology to connect people. Right. And that's why the bigger companies, fan companies, overhired because of that. And that, right. And that's just, and it's just writing that.
But what you would have thought was okay, if no restaurants open, no stores open, the economy would just come to a screeching halt, and everyone would get fired, and we'd be waiting in bread lines. But we couldn't because we had to wear a mask, and no one's allowed to go outside. But so those things didn't happen, and so even during that time, people were still getting hired, and so I still feel like I'm super bullish on this, and I don't think that's me saying that as a Bootcamp owner. I'm just looking at the stats and going bro, learn how to code. The thing that I think people need to understand right now is we're in the midst of a platform shift, and you may not be able to see it. But when we talk about AI, and I don't think AI is going to take over the world and we're going to get flying cars next week. What I'm saying is there's going to be tons and tons and tons of projects that they'll want to implement AI or some type of ancillary product or service that's been powered by AI to do this, and you're going to see lots of activity.
It's the new mobile thing, isn't it? That's the thing. It's the switch from web to mobile. It's that kind of shift. Exactly. It didn't seem like it was a big deal, did it? It didn't at the time. It definitely didn't. It was it's just a phone. Nobody's going to want a website on that. It's kind of weird. And then everybody wanted a mobile app. Same thing.
Right. And so it's going to drive a lot of new jobs, a lot of new companies, a lot of new development. And if you know how to code, you can take advantage of that. And I think that's what we're saying, that when you look around and you see one layoff from Microsoft, which when you look at the numbers, it's like whoop-de-doo. The other thing too that I find funny about these people, they always look at the top 5 FANG companies, and you got to understand that FANG companies aren't the only place to work. They do hire lots of people, but it's not the only place to work, and they have other factors that cause layoffs. So if the interest rates rise a little bit, they're still expected to turn the same kind of numbers. They'll just lay off 6% of the workforce, and boom, our stock price goes up. And that's kind of how that works. But the construction company, the logistics company down the street, they don't operate that way. They're looking at like, what are the opportunities that we could do through automation to make more money? Right. And they hire people and they make things happen and they make products, and we get hired to do consulting projects. So I think those are the types of things you need to think about. The overall market is super strong, and coders are in nowhere shape or form oversaturated whatsoever. And you don't have to go to Coder Founder to figure that out. You can go any boot camp you want to, any school you want to, learn how to code.
I wonder sometimes if, like, I don't think the person who left the comment is lying about what they believe. They're not. Right. It's that you're right. It's that external thing that they look at. But it also makes me wonder, like, are they in some kind of bubble themselves that makes them feel that way? Is that why where it comes from? Is it just like, oh, because I can't do it, therefore it must be all these things? Right. Is that the only thing? Because we know that it's not actual reality, and maybe they must be feeling that way.
Instinctively, when we fail at stuff as humans, I probably do it to some degree. You probably do it to some degree. It's like the instinctive is like, okay, that's got to be someone's fault. Like somebody did something.
Right. It's right. Yeah. Who am I pointing at?
It's not my fault.
The Spider-Man meme. Who am I pointing at?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can remember the classic one was Han Solo had the line all the time in Star Wars, like, "It's not my fault." It's not. He was always kind of saying that, but the quicker we look internal and go, okay, maybe it's not my fault, but what could I do to overcome these things? What can I control? The things we can control is our proof of work, our output from into the marketplace of ideas, and then see if we can resonate with someone who will hire me instead of just giving up. I think giving up, it doesn't mean the job market is not going to get better in 8 years from now. I think it will, but it's not going to fundamentally change over the next 12 months. I should sit it out. So you might as well throw your hat in there at this point.
Definitely.
But I think there's reasons why these people fail, though, that's correctable. And that's what we do here at Coder Founder. We're trying to find the correctable things that why people fail, and then try to say, okay, this is what you need to do.
Okay, so let's talk about some of them. Let's start out with like things why we see people fail before they even get the interview. Something we call a soft no. What's a soft no to you?
So a soft no is when they look at the entry point into your job search. So here's how we look for jobs. We got to have a passive way for people to find us. Okay, the primary way is LinkedIn, and then the sub way is the portfolio. The portfolio is less discoverable. So the most discoverable way that we can do it is LinkedIn, because the people that are hiring, either internal recruiters or external recruiters, third-party recruiters, or just some business guy that's running the company, is looking on LinkedIn to find people, because that's the most easiest way for him to search of everyone that's working. Okay, so if you're applying directly to a job and you don't have a LinkedIn profile, immediate soft no. And a soft no is they don't even consider you. You're not getting a call back. You're not going to get interviewed. You're not going to do it. Now, I'm sure there's one guy sitting in the back of the room saying, I ain't got no LinkedIn profile, Kevin. I've had 42 jobs, and like there's always one. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But for the rest of us regular people, we need discoverability in order for them to make sure that we're actually a real person. We actually do this. So job one, you got to get a LinkedIn profile. Here's the other part of that. Once we become discoverable, you got to ask your question, what are they discovering? Like, like what are they going to see? Is it good? So there's a couple of things that happen on LinkedIn specifically and this is going to sound very nitpicky, but we know this works, is that profile picture, man. It's got to be right down the middle, pretty pleasant smile.
Almost like you're just looking over it. Like it just exists and you don't really notice it. You don't want somebody to say, that's a weird profile picture, or that looks like you look like a model in that. Like you don't want that. You just want it to exist. It needs to be vanilla.
Vanilla, professional. Yeah. That means, I think, slight smile. You have to show all 30 of your teeth. I don't know how many teeth we have. We probably have more than 30 though. But if you only have 30, maybe you don't smile. But but we got to have a slight business smile. I think you should wear business clothes. For guys, it doesn't have to be a tie, but like a button down, maybe
a collar at least. Like it's a professional network. Like you're going for a job. Would you show up for an interview in a t-shirt? Probably not, right? So,
yeah, I think that's what you do. Ladies, same thing. Business clothes, professional shot, slight smile. Unless you are an Instagram model, you don't have to dress like or be an Instagram model. We're trying to be a developer. That's not what we're trying to be. So there's two different sets of people coming here. Now, if you think I'm sexist on the lady photos, ask a professional person what to do, how to dress, how to behave. But I can tell you that we have seen people get no interview requests, Kevin. We have said, just do me a shot, do me a solid, and let's change that profile picture. And the very next day get interview requests. And we know that it changes. Now, you can sit there and go, well, that's not fair. I'm not photogenic. I'm never going to win now. It's not that. It's about when they look at it, do you look like a developer or not? Do you look like a professional person or not? Now, if you have a weird photo, like where you've cut out your wife from the wedding, and it's like the circle
we've seen everything
right here across your face, and you're trying to lean into it, and you can't see it, or you're sticking your tongue out and you're making a funny face, or we've seen people with costumes on. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, just take a professional photo and just do that. I think that's job one. The second thing in LinkedIn is that subheading.
Oh, it's everything in LinkedIn. It's because it's searchable. People don't realize
that's the search thing that they're looking for. So when I type in a search on LinkedIn, they're searching that subheading.
It's literally the first thing that it searches. It doesn't look at the rest of the profile. If you go on there right now, anybody go on LinkedIn and search for like C#, and the people that come up, I guarantee you, the first few pages at least will have C# in that subtitle. Guarantee you, because that's the first thing it searches. It's so powerful.
Right. So that thing has to be keyword searchable. So junior aspiring developer that wants a job as a coder in that subheading is terrible. It's because it's not searchable. They're not typing that in. The other thing too is they use words like junior aspiring or I want to be. Just put in there developer.
Yeah, no hiring manager searches for a wannabe developer. They want an actual developer. They're never going to search for that. I want
someone that's pretending to be a developer.
Exactly.
I find that on LinkedIn. And that's not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. What about?
So that's the two things there. The other thing is when you come to LinkedIn, and we tell this to students a lot, even they're coming out of our full-time program, we go look at their LinkedIn profile. The first thing is experience. And you'll see like retail job or whatever job you've been doing, right? If that's the first thing that comes up, they're going to think you work at that retail job and you're not a developer. So you've got it up here, but the experience level says otherwise. And that's why, because of the way LinkedIn works, because of the way resumes work, it's not that we're saying that our students work at Coder Foundry. What we're saying is we're going to count our projects and stuff, and we got to put an experience so it shows up at the top. Right. And that if they read it, it explains kind of what I did. But at least now you can say they've got some education, they've got some projects. Let me take a look. But if you bury it down in the education section, it doesn't show up, and they say restaurant manager. Skip, soft no.
Right.
And so you have to bring up your experience, what you've been doing lately, to the top. And that's the other thing. So that's the soft no on LinkedIn.
Let's just talk about a couple things here real quick. So Eric said I got tons of messages after I switched my headline to C#. Yeah, because people were searching for it. I guarantee that's what happened. And then I said photo with an iPhone. Okay, yes, it can be, but you can take a bad photo with Nikon. Exactly with the best camera on the planet. You can still get a bad photo. You can get a great photo from an iPhone. Is the question here isn't whether the iPhone is okay. The iPhone is definitely okay. It's whether the photo you take with it is okay. It's got to be professional, no weird shadows, not weird location. Like even things
and
like
it can't be a black dot like his profile down there.
Yes, exactly.
You got to take the lens cap off, man.
Yeah, make sure you take the lens cap off. Exactly. But yeah, just it's got to be simple. Like just a simple blurred background behind you. An iPhone's totally capable of doing that these days. If you have a modern one, it has portrait mode. You can totally get that blurred background real nice. Don't stand like too close to a wall. Don't be in a dark room. Just go Google online. Exactly. Go Google online how to take a perfect like portrait with an iPhone. There are tons of resources you can do. You want nice diffuse soft light and nothing weird behind you, and that's you can get a decent photo with an iPhone, definitely. Okay, let's talk about skill set then. What about skill set matching? Because that's an issue too, right? We've seen.
Yeah. The other thing too is the second step of this. So you got your LinkedIn together, and then you need a portfolio. Your portfolio houses all your skills, okay? And so when we go to the portfolio, we'll see like bad contrast on portfolios. This is why we do reviews, because like we see even coming out of our bootcamp, like dude, like you can't use dark red and yellow as background colors. Like you can't do that. It's hard. I mean, like it's hard to design with. And so the portfolio has to be professional, readable, no misspellings and no mistakes. It has to be perfect. I mean, like, in other words, like you proofread it, go through it, make sure all your links work. And it has to look professional, look pro. And then you have to have good projects. And we'll talk about projects in a second. So if you've got that coming in, the thing is when you apply, okay, you're applying to a role that does, let's say, Java development. And then they see your LinkedIn profile and it says C# developer. And then they go to your portfolio and it's all C# projects. Soft no. They're not going to translate you into another job. And I would say this, and people can disagree with me all they want. You got 10 years of experience. It's really hard to leap over to a new stack unless you're really good at interviewing.
Right. Here's really the thing. Difficult. So there's two things to this I think often get confused. While an employer probably won't hire you because you've already done this other language, you could learn the other language easier. And I think that gets confused a lot. Like you could switch technically from a technical perspective. If you've been programming in Java for 10 years, could you switch over and learn C#? Yes, you could, and it could be quite easy for you. Yep. Right? But that's a different thing than not having switched, not having learned anything, and expecting an employer to see that you can switch. They just often won't, because they'll go with, again, there's somebody else that's there that does know that has a matching.
That beat you because they have the matching stack. So wherever you go to school, whether that's Coder Foundry, college, whatever self-paced course you can take, pick a stack that you can go to market with. I think there's 3 or 4 out there that are prevalent in our industry for web development. I think that is obviously React and ASP.NET would be the top 2 Angulars in that mix. And then, yes, you could get something like Laravel or something like that, or the Django that are smaller, but there's other ones out there. Those are the big ones. And then interview at companies that is using that stack to do what they're doing. Especially for first-time job searchers, it's next to impossible to interview for a React job if you've been doing .NET and C#. It's hard. Okay, we know that.
Yep.
And that's why here we tell people, hey, let's go after these jobs with this language stack. Now, if you have a subset of those languages, it's easier. All right. Now, how can you overcome that? You're saying, okay, Bobby, I learned .NET and I want to break into React. What do? You got to build a project in React and have it on your portfolio that you can show and talk about. And so maybe you went to Coder Foundry, now you want to learn React, you jump over and you take our React course. Should be way easier after coming through here. And you learn it, you build something with it, and you show people that, and then you break into that. But if you don't want to go through that effort, stay in the stack that you've built with and try to go to market with that. Now, if you pick something that's obscure because it was hot, like Rust, which I would say Rust isn't obscure, but compared to the broader job market, it is. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it sucks. What I'm saying is like you need the most opportunities you can get, especially as a first-time job person, to break in with. So the other thing is stacks and languages are used for certain things. So going out as a Python web developer isn't nearly as strong as Python data science. That's stronger. You'll get more opportunities that way. So knowing how these stacks are used in the industry makes more sense. Can we build websites with Python? 100% you can. How many people are hiring that comparatively to React and ASP.NET? It's a lot smaller. Data science, totally different story, okay? Yep. If you looked at ML.NET from C# and something like PyTorch or Python, you're going to have way more success over here in the Python. And if we were doing a data science bootcamp, that's what we would be teaching, just because we know there's more opportunities out there for you. So I think that is what you need to consider. Align my stack with people that are hiring for that stack, and you have a better chance to get interviewed. So you got to tailor your searches for that and find jobs. Now, the two places to look for jobs, Indeed and LinkedIn. That's the two places. There's other ones, Dice. There's other search engines, but we have great success from those two search engines. And then we look in there almost exclusively every 24 hours for 1 to 3 year .NET jobs that we apply our students to every 24 hours. And that's the other thing that we do that's different.
So Eric said he had an interview yesterday for a Java shop for an integrator role. I want to know if I could transition to dev later, and the interviewer couldn't get past that I was a C# guy. And the only way to get past that is, like Bobby says, is you have to have proof that you can do it. We had a situation before, right, where we had a student who they went through our entire bootcamp and did really well in it. They learned all the C# and .NET stuff, and then a PHP role came up. I think it was PHP, right? I think it was and they spent the weekend building a project and presented it on the Monday and got the job. They had no prior experience with PHP, but it was like they showed over that very short period of time that they could actually build something with it, and they did, and that got them the job. So it is possible. It's just it's more difficult to do. But you got to prove you can do it.
The reason most people don't do that is because they've been warped by Twitter and like things. Don't do anything extra to get the job you're not going to get anyway. And that's the negativity I see all the time. Like, no, invest the weekend, do the extra step. Like that's what we got.
Chances are you're the only one that will. Right. It's already in your favor because everybody else is going to have this other attitude that I'm not doing that.
Right. I'm not doing that. I'm doing that for a job I'm not going to get. Well, you might get it. I mean, why give up before we even start?
Right.
Other thing is you just add to your skill set. You grow you. You're not doing it for the company per se. You're doing it to grow you as a developer, which makes you more valuable. But yeah, aligning your skill sets with the company is very important because we do, man, as developers, we get opinionated, man. Like we are in camps, like we're in camps and you can say whatever it is. And I see 20-year veterans saying, the coding's just a tool and the tools don't matter. I do whatever is right for the job. Yeah, you have a 20-year career. All right. You got a 2 to 3 year career or a 0-year career. The tool is the job. That's the tool you need to have in order to do the job. We only can do it one way in the beginning because that's what they'll hire me to do.
Right.
And I think that when you also get job advice from a working coder that has 20 years experience is probably the worst job advice you can get from those guys because they don't see that their resume projects way stronger than what this other person has. They don't understand that. They've forgotten how they broke in. They've forgotten what they do. And they're like, and they don't see that. And they also will tell you like, coding challenge? Bruh, I don't do those. Okay, that's because you got 10 offers.
Yeah, you don't have to. Exactly.
Yeah, but you would do them if you really wanted that job. If they were like, hey, we're going to launch rockets into space. You're like, man, I want to launch rockets into space. Okay, what's the coding challenge? I'll do it. But, if everything's being equal and you got 8 offers, 7 of them said, will you show up on Monday? The one guy says, can you spend a week making the thing? You're like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I've got 7 other offers over here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so those kind of people are the worst to get advice from. What you need to get advice from is someone like, I know it's bragging, like me, that's trying to help juniors get a job. Like, dude, sometimes we got to jump through a few hoops. We got to sing for our
This
supper.
is because you have both.
Got to do a lot of stuff.
You have both perspectives. You have the perspective of being somebody who's been in it for 20 years, but also working with a lot of people who are just starting. So you know what it's like for you, but you know what it's like for them. So therefore, you can balance and see the differences between the two.
Right, and I just want people to win at this. Not necessarily promote us over everyone else, but I just want to see people win. That's the purpose of this channel, is to help you win.
Okay, so everything we've talked about so far, this is all pre-interview stuff. This is just getting to the interview.
We
haven't got an interview yet. So these are all things that can help you basically get that first hurdle. So after you've got that, let's say that you've applied for 15 things and you've got 3 interviews, let's say. You got 2 interviews, let's say, out of that. What's your next step here then with the interview? How do we often fail at the interview part of this?
This is our secret sauce at Coder Foundry. And I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll continue to say it because
I hear it every day.
Program don't do this. I don't know why, but they continually don't do it. And it's the difference between getting hired and not getting hired. And that's when you walk into an interview, it is not onto you to answer every single question they ask you. It's your job to demo applications that they can turn around and ask questions about the application. That's your goal as the interviewer. The interviewee's goal is to ask you questions to ascertain your skills. The best way they can do that is you show proof of work. Now, it doesn't work all the time, because I've heard recruiters tell our students in the last 3 weeks, I don't need to see your proof of work. They don't care about your portfolio. And then that's the HR lady. Then we slide over to the dev, and then we say, hey, I'm going to share my portfolio. He's very interested. He gets hired, and so how does people not understand that if I demo something of working code, it takes the risk out of me as a candidate away. Oh, you built that? You've done that? And you can answer questions about it. So here's the thing. You can't go to GitHub, download 6 repos that you didn't build, compile and put them on your portfolio and fake your way into a job. That's not going to happen. Because the moment you show a portfolio, then you've started the interview questioning process. Now you've taken control of the interview. Now they're going to ask you about that code you supposedly wrote. You didn't write it, you will lose, you'll fail, you'll get rejected. If you did write it and you can talk about it, you'll win and get an offer. It's that simple. So what we do is we take the top 20 interview questions, the top 20. We Google these on a routine basis. We talk to students when they get interviewed. What did they ask you? And we compile these questions. The questions are the same, regardless of, in the stack. So in C#, we see the same interview questions over and over again for the last 5 years. Because I think interviewers are Googling the top 20 C#.
Yeah, I agree, exactly. They haven't got the time to make up their own.
Because they don't know how to interview necessarily. They just Google them. And so we know what the top 20 are. Now, if you're out there in React, Python, whatever it is, do the same thing. There's tons of websites out there. I was looking at one yesterday, the top 20 React questions. Go through all of those and then build a project that answers all those questions. That's what we do. We have 20. We actually, in our interview course on the self-paced course, we have 100. We have the top 100 C# questions. And we show you in our projects where each one of those questions are answered.
Yep. We have an actual example. Thing.
If you demo the first question and they had 15 questions on their paper, you've now shortened that interview process to maybe 5. And you may have taken them all where they just throw the paper all together.
Yeah, and start asking you stuff.
Hey, what's that controller do? Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah.
You've won at that point. Yeah. And then what I'm telling people is, if you demo, the quicker you demo, the quicker you win. I don't care where you went to school, whether you come to Coder Foundry or not. If you demo during an interview, you'll win. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how does a 20-year veteran get jobs then? Because they don't have portfolios. They don't have things to show. Here's the difference. And I know this because I've seen people win interviews and I've seen people lose interviews. As a recruiter, when I'm trying to place people into jobs and they're 20-year vets and someone's paying us a fee to find them, I know that why they lose. And it's because they can't talk in examples. And so when someone says, hey, what have you been working on? Well, I worked on, United Airlines and, we handled baggage claims. And then when you ask a coder that, they're like, oh, that's cool. How did you do this? Or how did you handle this? Now, what they've done is they've controlled the interview by showing them, and it's virtually, they don't have a real thing to show. I talk about a project everyone knows about, and suddenly now we're talking about that project. Fantastic. Yep. If they can't talk about that project at a deep level, they don't win. They can't talk in examples. They only can talk super high level. If you're a 20-year veteran and you can answer all 100 questions with 100 academic answers and you nail every one of them, but you never reach an example of like where you actually did it, you don't get hired. I don't care if you could sit there and you're on Jeopardy, coding for Jeopardy. You know, it doesn't matter. This isn't what this is. This just say, I know what this question means. I've implemented it over here, and this is how that works. And if you can do that, you win. 20-year veterans can do that instinctively, just like that.
Right. They're not consciously thinking about that, are they? So that's just how they talk about it.
That's how they talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're at work and everyone says, hey, have you fixed, the loading process or whatever, like, yeah. And then they're talking about the code in the hallway while we're drinking coffee. And it's weird. We talk about code like other people talk about sports.
Right.
It's weird. But those seniors can do that. Those mids that are very successful can do that. They're the ones that you see on conferences. They're the ones that can always inspire confidence because they know the code inside and out. It's in their head. They're doing it. The juniors come in and they try to memorize 10 questions and they can't talk in examples, lose. Or they haven't done the work to be able to answer the questions and they lose. So if someone asks you, hey, if you're interviewing for an NBC job and they say, what is NBC? And you got 3 NBC projects on your portfolio and you go, I don't know. They're meaning they say, well, how'd you write those things that you have on your portfolio?
Right. You lose your credibility, don't you?
You lose your credibility. Next candidate. No. And I lose. So you need to study the top 20 interview questions. Then you need to think of this question. This answer is, for example, if someone asks you, what is NBC? You can say NBC is a model view controller. It's an architectural design pattern. For example, I built a website using NBC, and let me show you a sample controller out of that project. Boom, you get hired. And if you follow it up with a demo and a working piece of software that's on the screen, whether you're interviewing over Teams or not, that's the great thing too, man. 5 years ago, you had to set your laptop up in a conference room and hope they had a projector. Right. Now, typically, the first interview you have is via Teams or Zoom. Screen share built in, baby. You have no excuses whatsoever.
Exactly.
I'm sharing my screen right now. Let me show you how this works, and they can't stop you.
they generally can't. If you're in a lot of those meetings, they're not clamped down. They're really not. You can just share. It's mostly everybody in there just you're like, yeah, let me show you this before they've even said anything. You've got it on the screen, and it's so good. Let's talk about your tip around these things. Then I know you use a lot of these.
I don't have one in here with me, but like what I think that someone should do is you take mine's called a moleskin, like that's the brand, but they make 1,000 of these at any Walmart or any office supply store.
You can get them cheap. You can get them expensive.
Yeah. And I write down the question. I'd write down every single question I was asking in the interview. And then if you don't have time to write your answer down, just check it during the interview that says, yeah, I got that one, or X, I didn't do good there. And so let's say they ask you what question that was asked in the interview this morning was, how do you handle exceptions in NBC? Yeah. What happens when an exception is thrown? That's a question that came back from a student. And if he's watching, he knows exactly what happened. And so he answered that. But if he didn't answer it, what I told him was send him an email back with a code example of how that works. If he felt like that was a weak answer, and push that in there. And that's the difference between winning and losing. And sometimes you can do that and save a bad interview, turn into a good one. Say, I was nervous. We all when they're in the interview process, our mind blanked out and I couldn't remember that. But now upon further review, this is what I think. And you basically send them a blog article back that you wrote and show examples. And I think that can help you sometimes overcome it. But even if you don't overcome that one, you still get a no there. The next time that question's asked, boom, you got it. You know it.
Yeah, you've solidified your learning there, haven't you, too? You've gone back, you've learned the thing, you've done a little project on it of some kind, you now fully understand it enough for next time. Right. But we have seen that technique win. We've seen it firsthand.
Yes, we've seen it win.
A student has felt like they've bombed, they've sent in their work after the fact and got hired. So we know that it works.
Yep.
What about your other tip around email addresses too? Getting the email addresses.
Yeah. So when you get in there, make sure you have the contacts of everyone that you're interviewing with, so you could email the follow-ups to them. You know, you don't want to spam them, obviously, but like you want to see if you can get their card, or do you have a card, or do you have an email address, just in case I could follow up with you. They don't want to give it to you, that's fine. But make sure you have a contact into the company, either through HR or the dev manager or something, that they'll forward it on to the interview team, especially if you're interviewing with 10 people. Typically, if you get their first and last name, you can find them on LinkedIn. It's typically the last name plus first initials, the email address, something like that.
Usually. You usually find the format for the company, can't you, somehow? Find somebody else there and be like, okay, I know this guy's name's this name, so okay, I can probably figure that out and just send it. Yeah. What do you think about just follow up in general then? After the interview, you talked about like sending information in. Is there an ideal like amount of follow up? What's the goal with follow up?
Yeah, so a lot of people treat this like dating, and he says, if I follow up the next day, do I seem desperate? I'm like, are you desperate? Yes, follow up the next day. So if you've interviewed with the company and they've taken the time to interview and you sat down with them for an hour answering questions about .NET, I think you've earned the right to get an answer after that point. It's not rude. It's not inconvenient, and then you can ask in an interview, hey, when should I follow up about this interview? Is tomorrow too soon? And if they say, well, give us 2 days to review and sit down, then you hit them on that second day, dude. You hit them right then, and you keep chasing it down till you get interviewed. Because here's what could happen. Let's say you're interviewing with 8 people, and you're the second place candidate. No one likes to be second, but let's say you're second. They choose their first one, and you keep following up. The first one turns the offer down, gets another offer, doesn't leave, and suddenly now you've moved to the top slot. Okay? Let's say that you're the 4th place person. You're kind of the middle of the pack, Kevin, and they got this rock star they want to hire, and there's 3 people they thought were better, but the rock star turns them down. And as soon as they get turned down, your email and say, hey, man, how'd the interview go? I'm really interested in the job. And they're like, well, that guy's interested.
He was pretty good. Yeah, they're now top of mind again.
Yep. Yeah, and so you can jump the line. You can be there when something goes wrong in the other hiring process. Or here's the other thing: people are human. They interview 6 people. He goes on vacation, comes back, and forgets that he even interviewed you. And you're like, well, I want to work for somebody that forgot. I'm like, they got other stuff going on. Your job's to go in and get a job. So you go in, remind him, hey, remember our talk last week? What do you think? Oh, I forgot, Kevin. Slipped my mind. I went to the beach last week. I know I meant to get back to you. Sorry about that. I got busy. You know how Mondays are. And say, yeah, I really liked you. Let's talk. And so suddenly now you've earned the right to be heard. So I think you follow up the next day if you don't get anything. But if they tell you to wait 2 days, you wait exactly 2 days, and you're sitting there on the front door. This isn't like where you're going to seem desperate. They're never going to count you down for being overly aggressive, for getting a job.
Right. I mean, to be overly aggressive, you have to be really overly aggressive. They're only going to think man, this guy won't leave me alone. If it's like,
if you knock on the front door at his house at 8 p.m., that's a little cringy, but
Yeah, no, but I agree. To follow up after a few days is fine. And then a few days after that, and a few days after that. The goal of working to an answer is the thing, right? You want them ultimately to say, sorry, we've hired somebody else.
Right. So what I also think is, having said that, we get one interview and we interview once. We don't wait around for the answer to that one. We follow up with that one, but we're also trying to engineer other interviews as well. Ideally, we want to get to 10 interviews. Okay. If you demo in 10 interviews and you're a pretty good demo, you're going to get hired in this industry. So that's the way it is. And we tell Coder Foundry students, if you demo your bug tracker 10 times, you're more than likely going to get hired. And if you don't, we're doing something fundamentally wrong. That means you're screwing the demos up. You're not answering the questions. There could be something wrong with your presentation. You don't present confidently. You don't know the material well enough. There's all of these things are correctable for you to be able to do this. It's not luck. It's not luck why people get hired. And it has nothing to do with luck. It has to do with skills and bringing value and confidence into the interviewer and say, okay, this person can do it.
And this comes back to our original kind of premise around the original comment. So kind of to go full circle with this is when you've done a lot of one of these things, either you've put in a lot of applications or you've interviewed a lot and you either one of those things and you still don't have a job, it's always going to be about looking internally versus looking externally. Because the temptation right there is to say, well, I'm done, job market's saturated, clearly I can't do it, they're not hiring juniors anymore. Whereas we know there's probably 10 things that you can do to improve your chances, and it is just all about improving your chances. It's about maximizing your opportunities, and you can do these extra things to maximize these things.
The other thing we didn't even talk about is like Zoom etiquette. You know, so maybe your camera cuts
we could do a whole
like that.
Webcast on that.
Maybe your camera's in your bedroom and your bed's unmade behind you. You know, and it's just it looks messy and out of place. Maybe you look disheveled during the interview because you're in your pajamas when you interview because you're doing it remote. You know, those kind of things. You don't dress up for the interview. You don't look attentive during the interview. You don't hold eye contact. And also, don't use the eye tracking eye contact. That's kind of weird, that NVIDIA thing.
Oh, it's like, it's actually creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, just look in the camera, you know? Like,
it's actually creepy. Better. So here's the thing for me, like right now, like if I was doing a job interview, a few things that I would change for my situation right now. Firstly, I'm never looking right at the camera here because I'm always looking at you just below it. I would interview differently here. I would interview on my laptop camera, and I would prop it up and have it right in front of my screen, right in front of my face. Secondly, I wouldn't be wearing a t-shirt. Third, I wouldn't have this stuff behind me. Even though this stuff now works for us on YouTube, I wouldn't interview in a place that looks like this. I'd blur this out, or I'd go somewhere that looks bland and a beige wall of some kind, something that's non-distracting behind me. There's a million mistakes you can make. And it's like, you may just be continually making that same mistake and not even realizing you're making it. And you're getting that soft no, or you're getting an actual no at this point, right? If I've gone for an interview, you get an actual no.
But you're shooting yourself in the foot by just doing the Zoom etiquette thing. You just don't have it. Second thing is, man, don't make sure your technology works. Like if your camera's got to work, you can't be fiddling with your camera, unplugging it, plugging it back in. You got to make sure that you can get into the Zoom call, the Teams call, or Google Meet. It is terrible to excuse like, I ain't never used Teams before, so like I'm trying, you know, and like you can't do that. You have to know how all this stuff works. We're interviewing for technical roles, so you should be able to handle your technology.
It's literally part of the test. Showing up and being like technically present is part of the interview. It may seem like it's not, but it's like it's literally the first checkbox on the thing. Did they show up and do they know what they're doing? Do they sound okay? Do they look okay? It's literally checkbox number one.
Yeah, and so microphone matters too. I mean, you can use iPods. I don't think they sound as good.
I think they sound terrible. I have AirPod Pros, and I would never show up to an interview in these things. I think they sound terrible. I would actually, if I'm doing a phone interview, the phone microphones are way better. Some laptop microphones are really good. The Mac ones are especially good.
MacBook's really good. I mean, like how it sounds, at least where it's not like iPhones can sound crackly.
Yeah.
You can go in and out. They can't understand you. It sounds kind of bad. But if you have a PC set up and you're like, what mic do I get? I mean, you can get the Snowball we've used. I'm talking about the cheap ones.
I think they're like, I think they're like 50 something bucks, right?
Yeah, they work pretty well. And then any kind of like pro webcam from Logitech, Elgato, those kind, you don't have to have like here I'm looking at a Blackmagic, you know.
Yeah, but you don't need that. You can get a decent webcam. Either the ones, if you have a Mac again, the webcams that are in them are great. They're super good. If you have a cheap laptop though, you can easily attach a USB camera to it for $50, $60 or whatever it is. They're pretty cheap.
Just make sure your stuff is plugged in and powered up, ready to go. If you've never used Google Meet before, just make sure that you call a friend on Google Meet. Yeah, go try it out. Hey, I got an interview on this. I just want to make sure I know how to log into these things. Same thing with Teams. Teams can be problematic sometimes because they have a work version, they have a personal version, and you get confused of which one to log in. And if you download the wrong one and they're using, sometimes it doesn't work. I think they're stretching it out, but it's primarily Zoom or Teams is what people are using these days. So you got to be able to get into either one of them. It doesn't matter if you like it or not.
And it's also not just
I hate this about Twitter where they say, hey, I saw the company using Teams and I refused to interview. And I'm like, really? Like really?
Hey, that's more chance for somebody else.
To use. Like, it's like, what in the world are we talking about, man?
And when we're talking about like making sure that you can use them as well, it's not just about making sure that you can attend. Make sure you know how to share your screen. Because don't forget, you do want a demo. Make sure you know how to share it, because they're not always super obvious. If you've got a dual monitor setup and you want to share only part of one of the screens, you have to understand how that works, because it's going to ask you what you want to share. You want to share the screen, you want to share the application, you want to share the window. Make sure you know what you're doing and you're not like messing around with it. Because like Bobby said, you want to jump in and just be like, hey, let me show you this. You want to hit the button and be sharing it before they've even had an opportunity to say, well, hold on a second.
And while we're talking about screen sharing, just close all the windows before you start the thing. Like don't share something on that.
Yeah, don't jump across to like your Gmails there or something or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Just exactly.
Call of Duty up over here, Warzone's frying up, and you show Warzone.
Yeah.
Just don't share it. Just make sure you know what you're sharing when you're sharing it. Don't embarrass yourself.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm sorry, that was Call of Duty. I was just busy before I came here. Well, this is, and it's okay. We all play games, but it's like
that's
you have
not the time.
Exactly. Exactly. You just got to be serious about what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully this was useful. Hopefully there was a lot of good stuff in here.
You got a question?
I always enjoyed the conversation.
That was like one question for the road. Any comment?
Let me see. Let's see if we got a question. What do we get? Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I kind of like this. Kopo says, I want to program in the aerospace industry, but there are almost no entry-level jobs. They want professional C++ and hopefully Rust devs with lots of experience. It's like you want to launch rockets, but you're a junior, right? That's kind of like the way I see it. What do you think about that? How do you handle that?
Well, I'm going to read psychologically into what you're saying. They want C++ and hopefully Rust. All right. You need to know if they want C++ or Rust. Okay. You don't write something in Rust. Well, I hope you're using this. That's what we're talking about. You have to align your stack with them. So write down the targets that you want to work in. So when you say aerospace industry, it's probably a pretty small set of companies that you want to work for. And so what types of projects are they looking to do? And then build a project like that and show it.
I think you've also got to think about it maybe being a stretch goal too. Maybe your first job isn't the one at the aerospace place. Maybe you need to do something else first so that you can get to past the there's no entry-level jobs thing. Something that maybe is tangentially related. Maybe something that, I don't know, something that isn't like SpaceX, right? Maybe you can work at like, I don't know, the aviation place down the road or something that has an inventory system. Yeah. It's kind of, it's tangentially related.
In Greensboro, there's entry-level jobs. I mean, like, I think this is also a misnomer. He said there's almost none. Okay. I don't know if I buy that, but like, they're not buying all seniors, but if they are, then you need to see what are the actual skills they're looking for and what can you write that simulates those types of skills so you can showcase what you can do and you can win. If they're using C++, you're writing stuff in C++. You're using Rust, you're writing Rust. Typically, that means embedded or real-time systems that you need to be working on. So you need to find a way to make, something move across the street or something like that. Program a drone to do something. I don't know, like what you'd have to do. I have to really research like what the projects are. But you could find someone on LinkedIn and say, hey,
a drone would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, drone maybe, fly it into the face of somebody, something like that. As our friend Paul says on the Not Know podcast.
If you've never heard that, Paul has this like, he knew somebody who took a drone and they used AI and they trained it on facial recognition and they basically had it hunt somebody. Well, I didn't know the person. We read the story somewhere, right? So it was like, it said like, this person, you will fly into this person. That's a funny story. We programmed the drone to fly into a certain person. Maybe that's not the the one you want to show, but something with a drone could be interesting. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah.
So,
Yep. Bree, thank you for the super chat. Very, very, very much appreciated.
Thanks,
as always.
And we'll go get some cookies now.
You're always super generous in these cookies today.
Yeah. You only get, what are those cookies? They're like $4 or something. Kind of
crazy. For $10 you get 2 cookies because I think they come to like $5 something each. I think when they
it's a $5 to go there and get a cookie.
It is
a $5.
Not only is it a bad for you habit, it's also a very expensive habit. Again, I'm glad I don't work right next to it. I have to go out of my way to go over there. It's like a 10-minute ride for me. So
yeah,
I try and avoid it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's wrap this up. We'll be back again next week with another interesting one of these.
Keep coding, guys. Keep going.
Catch you guys later.
See you.